I received a lot of questions about my Stream Deck setup in my mixing video and also throughout a few other videos. So today I'm going to show exactly what I am doing with my Stream Deck, how I'm doing it, and what my future plans are, because I'm probably never finished with setting up this thing. So anyway, let's get started. Alright, so this is my Stream Deck. For the purpose of this video, I tilted it up. Normally it's laying flat on my desk, but if I'm filming it flat on my desk, then you're seeing more reflections than what the actual buttons are doing. And right now I'm using 4 different pages, at least that's what it looks like from the front end. But I have a home page, which has all my basic features. I have my plugins, my routing, and my Totalmix page, as I call it. So let's first run over the home page. So one of these buttons launches Reaper, the other one launches my Flux analyzer. Currently I'm only using Reaper, but sometimes I just want to quickly be able to switch to my analyzer and have that full screen. The next button opens and closes my mixer window. And if you've seen my mixing videos, you see that I will rarely use the mixer window. So I rarely use this button as well. I also have a shortcut setup for Track Manager. I use the Track Manager a lot because I do hide a lot of tracks when I'm not using them anymore. And sometimes I need to go back in there. And I have a button here with which I can add a comment. It's a really cool feature in Reaper. You can create a comment item or an empty item or however you want to call it. So hello world. And it will actually display the text there. So sometimes I need to remind myself of something and I can just add a comment somewhere in my session like this. Really cool feature from Reaper. I also have a batch rename script. Sometimes I receive files with a lot of clutter in there, a lot of clutter in the name. So it says the track name, few numbers and all that kind of stuff. And it's the same over all the files. So I can then like remove characters from the beginning. I can replace things, all that kind of stuff. And I can just do that over the selected channels. I can switch the timing here between minutes and bars. It's really handy because some clients talk in bars and other clients talk in time. I've made something here. It's called duplicate and mute. It actually is duplicate and remove from masterbus. As you can see here, like here it's routed to the masterbus. Here it's not. And I have a duplicate without content. These are 2 features that I use actually a lot when working with analog. For instance, like the duplicate and mute is a good one where I want to duplicate a track with all the contents on it to send to analog. So I want to be able to A/B it, but I don't want the quick volume bump that you're getting from duplicating that track, because usually I'm doing things while my playback is running. The duplicate without content is also really cool if you want to duplicate a track to reuse its settings for something else and want to record something else in there. In Pro Tools, you actually, when you duplicate, it's asking you, do you want to copy the playlist or not? And the playlist in Pro Tools is the stuff that's on the channel. Got a button to create a new tab in Reaper. I use a lot of tabs when working, definitely when working on albums and that kind of stuff. I actually use sub-projects as well. And then these next buttons here are all for exporting. So what I like to do is either create a region or create a region from selected items. So when I already know the length, because I have a pre-master or something, or a sub-project or whatever, I can create multiple regions with one press of a button. I have the region render matrix here, where I can select which channels I want to render for which region. Of course, the render to disk dialog I can open here. I can open my render queue, and I can trigger the render all queued command. So when I have made a render queue, I can just press this button and it will render all the projects that I have on the queue. Simple. In the corner, in the bottom, you'll see on every page, there is a solo release button. I really like to have that button on a fixed position. And if it would be possible, I would just love to have like a panel somewhere in my studio with a few fixed position things that I want to have on there. And one of them is solo release. I'm usually deep into projects and soloing a few things. And then all of a sudden I want to hear the whole mix again. I just press the solo release. What's really cool about Reaper is after you've released the solo, if you press it again, it will restore the old soloing situation. So you can really create an A/B test kind of with that. So that's all for the boring utility stuff on there. The next page is the plugin page. And these are basically all the plugins that I use. So over here we have our FabFilter plugins. These are the 8 FabFilter plugins that I like to use. So we have the Pro Q here, Pro C here, MB here, and the Pro L here. the DS, the reverb, we have the Saturn here, and we have Timeless here. Underneath there, I have two specific plugins that I like to use. It's Split EQ and the Illusia Alpha compressor, which is the only analog emulation that I use. Then up here we have 4 Sonable plugins. I should actually add more plugins to this because I tend to use a bit more than that, but I haven't been getting to using these. So these are the EQ, the compressor, the reverb, and the limiter. It's giving me errors. That's weird. I've never had those. I have focus track in here. I don't remember what this was for. I should actually remove this button. I think it had to do something with a controller that I was testing that needed this action to fire in order to focus it on that controller. Anyway, I put it there because it was needed. Yeah, this looks a bit weird. Anyway, let's ignore that one. Down here we have 2 buttons that actually launch an external editor. So I have a file here and I can just press RX here, and then RX opens up and I can just do whatever I want. Save the file and then override it. So override original files, what I'm using. And it will of course save an original as well. After that, and I'm doing that with both RX and with Melodyne. So by clicking on the file and then clicking on one of these external editors, it will open up in that particular external editor. I also have a polarity invert for the left channel on here. What that does is it adds this plugin with polarity mode invert left. Usually when I need this is when there's something like out of whack on like whatever, a stereo recording, and I just need to correct something. What could happen with, for instance, a stereo microphone setup that is out of phase is that I actually need to invert the right channel. But since I would already have the plugin here, I can just simply switch that to invert right. Most of the times I need this with synthesizers and sounds that are not related to other sounds. So there's no need to get them in phase because there's nothing to get in phase of them. I also have a pink noise button on here. It's red because it creates a lot of pink noise, and I insert these on the send towards analog gear whenever I need to calibrate the left and the right channel. So I use the pink noise and then I'm looking in my flux analyzer to, make sure that the EQing on left, right is correct and the balancing is correct. I check my view meters on compression to see if it's compressing the same on left and right. And that way I can deliver a more precise experience, definitely when it comes to left and right. So it's a mono pink noise. Let me mute that. It's a mono pink noise, which sends it out to the stereo channels. And underneath there, I have the delete effects button, and that basically deletes the currently selected effect. So if I'm not touching anything, just touch pink noise and then touch delete effect, I can also remove the pink noise just as quickly as I've added it. But I can also use it, of course, to delete other effects. And I also have an effects button in here. This is basically my bypass button. So I can click on a channel or, work somewhere deep in a session over here. And then if I have a selected channel, I can just press effects and it will disable the whole effect chain. Also great for A/Bing. The next page is a page that is still kind of under construction, but it is something that I'm really proud at because I've asked this question on the Reaper forum and I never got a good answer to it. So I just basically figured it out myself. So how this works is if I would have a track here, so let's import a track here. And because I have a lot of analog gear, I need to route a track to my analog gear. So this is a track that I needed to master for a client. It's actually already done this job. And I want to, for instance, route this to output 1 and 2 of my side EQs. So those are just simple line out, line in type of routing jobs. I can also route to my Neumann console. That's the upper layer, or the bottom layer, which is my side EQ. So I want to route this to 1 and 2. So stereo output to 1 and 2. And if I press this, you'll see that Reaper will do a few things. It will remove the channel from the master bus. So master send channel is disabled. It will then send it to hardware 1 and 2. And it will also save solo it. And that's all on one button press. So if I now, let's do it again. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. There we go. Normally, this is a lot of clicking work. And one of the things that I realized when using analog gear is that there is a certain threshold. Like you have to do a lot of technical stuff before you can actually use it. And I like to lower the threshold as much as possible because that makes using analog gear way more seamless. Now, same goes for input. So I'm sending this channel out, but I also want to record it back into Reaper. So I can create a new track here. Then I can go to my stereo inputs and then press 1 and 2 again, because it should come back on there. And if I have, I think I have a path in there. Let me mute the audio because it's from a client. But you'll see the audio now comes back. So what it did to this channel is it set the correct monitoring mode. It set it to record armed and it assigned the correct inputs to this. And this goes for everything that I have in here. I can also select like subgroup 5 and 6, like the 5, 6 subgroups from my Neumann console, and then select output 11 and 12. So now I'm routing it to channel 11 and 12, which come back on Neumann 5 and 6. And this is like, oh, this saves so much time. I can also, of course, use this in mono. So I can also route this as a mono channel to, for instance, let's say 1, receive it back on 1. There you go. It's a mono channel, for instance, for vocals or something. Some things aren't stereo. Some things are just mono. Now there's one more knob in here. It's called delete hardware routing, and that's literally that. I can just restore the status of a track here. So right now it's sending to side 1, and I can just say delete hardware routing, and it will restore it back to my default setting. And of course, an empty channel, recording channel, I can just delete that. There's also a reset all colors button down here. It's something that I'm heavily experimenting with, and I'll talk about that later. It's also not on the other pages, because these are all individual pages, but more on that a bit later on how I built this. So this is my routing, and the last thing that I have in here is called Totalmix. And let me get a project from a client in here, a full project. So this is a mix that I made, a pretty advanced mix actually. It's a lot of stuff going on in here. And one of the things that I always do is I have on top of my template, I have a client bus. And the client bus is routed to a different hardware output. So if I now make sure that I have no audio now and I only have my client bus playing. And if we look in Totalmix, we can see our client mix bus here is producing audio. And if I now enable my master bus, you can see that our master out is now also producing audio. So I'm basically sending both to my RME PCI card, because that's where the mixer is at. And I can control Totalmix with these different settings. So by default, and you can see it here, on my Quasar is my speakers, I'm listening to my master out, and I've been experimenting some things with Atmos that I want to be able to route to Quasar as well. So that's why you're seeing multiple channels here, and I'm sometimes playing a bit with this. That's something for a different video. What we need to focus on for now is master out and Mac out. This is my output from Mac, from iTunes, from Apple Music, from QuickTime, from Facebook, whatever. On the default setting, we're just, master out. So whatever I'm doing in Reaper is going to Quasar. If I press client, you'll see that over here the snapshot will change towards client mix. So right now on Quasar, we are listening to my client mix. So I can basically change my monitoring setup with these different settings. And this is really cool because sometimes I want to listen to like, hey, I'm working here, down here, whatever. And I want to listen to like, hey, how did my client mix this? And I can just press this button, listen to my client's mix, and then go back to my own mix again. Important to go back to your own mix, because sometimes then you're working like, hey, why isn't anything happening? Yeah, it's because we're listening to the wrong mix. Another button that I have in here is my master button. And this basically monitors the bus that I normally use for mastering. It's over here because it's a hardware input. So when I select this mode, I'm listening to 1 and 2, side 1 and 2, the buses that I use oftentimes for mastering. So when I just quickly want to check how it sounds running through the gear without making a new channel and all that kind of stuff, I can just quickly press master. I also have a loopback button in here. What loopback does is it disables the Mac output on Quasar and enables the Mac output on loopback. So it then sends the audio coming from Apple Music, whatever. It sends it to a loopback bus instead of to the speakers. I can then catch that loopback in Reaper. So the loopback is over here, and it's right now playing back whatever's happening in Apple Music. And I'm using that if I quickly need some sound to test something, just some audio that's more than just a sine wave. I also have Mac to gear, and what this does is it sends the audio coming from the Mac. We can see it actually in Totalmix. It sends the audio coming from the Mac to my master bus, and it then sends what is coming back on the master bus to my speakers. I'm using that feature when I'm testing a hardware product and I just quickly need some music, something, whatever. So these are the different settings, and that's all that is on the Stream Deck right now. I think you can basically do these things with every single DAW by now. Some of them will be more difficult to do this with. Other ones, like you have to find some workarounds for some things. Other ones will make it a bit simpler. How I'm tying this all together is by using Companion. And what I'm doing with Companion is I'm sending out OSC signals. Like Companion can send out a lot of different signals and can connect to a lot of different platforms at the same time. But currently I'm sending OSC signals to Reaper and to Totalmix. And you can see that over here. Like I'm just sending an OSC command here. I'm sending the command 40078. And if we look in the action list, we can indeed see that it is 40078. That's the command ID. And that's basically how all these buttons work. When it comes to the plugins, they aren't in the action list by default. You have to add them before. And how this works in Reaper, and I'm sorry for the people that are using different DAWs, but I don't know how to do it in different DAWs. I'm using Reaper, but I try to keep my channel as much generalized as possible. You have to right-click on the plugin in the Add FX window, and then you can add a shortcut to it. Let's do it with this one. Yeah, here it says it, create shortcut. You have to press a special key. So let's do whatever, this. Okay, if we now go to our action list, it will now show up in the action list. So focus right, here we go. You can delete the shortcut here. There's probably a quicker and easier way to do this. Reaper people, comment down below. But now you see that we have a comment ID, and I can copy the comment ID. This is our OSC comment ID, and add it here. So I can create a new regular button and make this a Reaper custom action. Paste that comment ID here. So let's say test button, focus right, fast. Do it like this. Go to the test button, wherever I am. So over here, press it. And this plugin is inserted. It's of course not working, but you know what I mean. When it comes to these icons, I made these myself by just cropping out something from the plugin. You can also use text. I don't like to use text as much because reading takes longer than looking at a picture. So I try to use as much pictures as possible. Although in some cases, I just simply don't know what to put there. If you have good ideas for these ones, let me know. Now, when it comes to routing, I went a bit further because there is no default option in Reaper to route something to an input or an output. And how this actually works is by a custom script. I wrote my own scripts for the hardware output routing because I couldn't find any, and I was like, hey, let's try this. And the basic way of developing this script was pulling my hair out, shouting a lot, being frustrated a lot, trying, failing, and repeating that until I succeeded and something worked. I'm not a programmer, and you can see that because if I open this action, there's probably a lot wrong with the script, but at least I've got something that works. So how this script works, actually was proud enough that I put my author name in here. I actually don't know what this is. So over here we're inputting which channel we actually want to assign to the input. This is the stereo version. We can also use this for our mono version. We have to count from 0. So 0 is 1, 1 is 2, 2 is 3, whatever. And over here it's doing all the routing and whatever. So it's first counting how many tracks I have selected so that it does it to auto-selected tracks. And then here it is getting the info from the track so that it can do it to that particular track. It's storing it in TR. And over here, it sets the record input to the new input channel that I'm declaring over here. And over here, it is arming the channel. That's basically what this script is doing. I'm actually working on a V2 that's over here. That is also checking if there isn't already a hardware output assigned to it, because then you have the risk of creating a feedback loop. But that I haven't got that working properly yet and not working in the way I want to. So that's just still an experimental phase. Also, I have basically duplicated the script and just changed the input channel value here. So if we go to this one, you'll see it's 1. If we go to this one, it's 8. And that way, or 7, of course, because it's input 8. And I basically just have assigned all these different OSC IDs to the Stream Deck. This was a lot of work to do, a lot of clicking and dumb work. And there's probably a more intelligent way to do this, easier way to do this, but I don't know how to do it. Same goes for the output scripts. This is of course a different script, and there's actually a mistake in here. Let's see if I can spot this. I think it was this for loop. It doesn't need to be a for loop, or it was this for loop. One of these two loops doesn't have to be a for loop, but anyway, it works. So don't try to fix something that isn't broken. And here you can indeed see that it is removing all the hardware sends, then creating a new send. It is doing the solo defeat, and it's setting the correct output to the send that I'm creating here. Basically what this script is doing. Again, it's not the best, but it works really well. And one of the things that I would love to do is make this way more intelligent by having the script check what is going on and understand what I'm trying to do. It's really weird to have to both make an input and an output. Like the computer should be able to understand that if I'm sending something somewhere, that it also is going to receive something from somewhere else. And definitely with things like the side EQs, which are literally the input will always be the same as the output. So what I'm thinking, at least for these ones, because these ones are the simplest to implement, and probably with the console, I'm going to have to make a prompt or something, and probably have the Stream Deck switch to a different page where I can input something else, like the inputs or whatever. But what I want this thing to do is that if I press 1 and 2, so these buttons will not exist anymore. I press 1 and 2. If there is audio on the channel, it's going to be an output. If there is no audio on the channel, if it's a new like empty channel, it's going to be an input, and it should be able to figure that out by itself. Like those type of automations, but those are way more advanced, and I should learn a lot more about Lua scripting before I can do that. If anyone over there can help me with that, please let me know in the comments or send me an email. Another thing that I'm looking into is, and this is what the reset all colors is for, I actually want, whenever I have a output routed, I want to be able to see this on the Stream Deck. And I already have this made for channel 1 and 2. So if I route to 1 and 2, Companion will automatically change this to the red color, and it will also do it to the monos. So these ones are not available anymore. This is not using a feedback from Reaper. This is literally just after pressing the button, it will turn red. That's also what the reset all colors is for. So now I'm resetting it and it's back. Also because I'm doing multiple rounds of hardware outputs within a session. So whenever I'm done and I've cleaned up the session, I can just reset all colors and then it's clean again. But this makes it more like an advanced sketchpad than actually something that really identifies which outputs are active. Like if I would open a session with outputs active, it's not going to change. But this is at least the idea, and I don't know how to implement this further yet. One of the things I also am working on is when I do a long press like this, that it then will remove the hardware output and also remove the color here and also over here. But yeah, that's still in development, and it's still something that I don't really know how to do. I don't know how to catch an OSC message coming from Reaper and translate that in such a way that Companion actually understands it. As said, this is always a work in progress. The Totalmix one is also a thing, because the way that I'm changing the colors here is really handy to have, because then I at least can see over here what I'm doing. And then I don't have to open up the Totalmix window. But the way these colors are changing is not because Totalmix is actually saying which mix is active, but because the Stream Deck is basically keeping track of which button was pressed last. And I did indeed put this manually into Companion. Now there isn't a lot wrong with that. Actually, the first nuclear power plants had the same kind of feedback. It didn't feedback what something in the power plant was doing, but it did just feedback the position of the switch in the control room. But that also was one of the reasons why there were so many problems around the meltdown of 3 Mile Island. So there is some argument for having proper feedback instead of just changing colors willy-nilly because you press the button. I really want to see what is going on. That's one of the things that I'm still going to be working on for the future. And another thing that I would like to integrate in here is my lighting and more things in the studio itself, probably some relay-based things or whatever, and maybe going even further and not just using a Stream Deck, but maybe also using some extra buttons that I put somewhere over the place. I don't know yet how to tie it all up together and whatever. I'll figure it out one day. I'm also thinking of getting a foot pedal to assign certain functions to. For instance, solo release. That could also be nice to just have on a foot pedal. And what would be even nicer is having another Stream Deck next to it, because then I don't have to switch that many pages. So a lot of ideas, a lot of stuff that still isn't done, but this project is such a work in progress that it will probably never be done. It will constantly be changing and that kind of stuff. I hope that I've inspired a lot of you to create a few cool macros and a few other cool things to make life easier, to work quicker in your studio and get your work done more efficiently and with less thinking. Like, I want my brain to be focused on the creative stuff that I'm doing and not on the constant technical thing of making sure that everything works. I want that to be as easy as possible. And the Stream Deck is a big player in achieving this. So yeah, that's all that I wanted to say for this video. I'm not being sponsored by Stream Deck, Companion, Reaper, whatever. This was just my own tour of how I'm doing things here. If you want to see more of this, leave a comment down below. And if you like my videos and want to support me, check out my affiliate links, Toman, Sweetwater, and Plugin Boutique. They will also be in the description down below. If you're using my affiliate links, I get a small commission on the purchase that you're making after clicking that link. It's a small commission, but a lot of people are doing that, and it really helps a lot. It makes a big difference over here. So it's highly appreciated if you do it. If you want to support me in a different way, you can become a channel member down below somewhere. And as a channel member, you get early access to videos, some extra content, exclusive content, behind the scenes content, whatever I'm able to make. A link in an interesting playlist about that over here. And the last way to support the channel is by simply staying on it and watching more videos. A link in an interesting video over here. Thanks a lot for watching. Keep pushing. Don't forget to subscribe. And bye-bye.